Hi, everybody who's watching from home, outside or their office, whatever they find themselves right now. And this is our last panel for the day. This is the COVID-19 and the entertainment industry panel. My name is Alessia. I'm the president of Syncopated Noise Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that supports emerging musicians through various events and activities like Rise. And we co-founded Rise in partnership with Golden Path Music. And our goal was basically to create an event that would bring together the industry professionals, especially during this time right now that we're living. Obviously, this was supposed to be a physical event, but with everything that's been going on, we decided to do a virtual version. So I'll be talking about, how COVID-19 has affected the industry, and I'll leave the floor to Darryl, who's our moderator for the panel, and we'll start the conversation. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a great day already, and I'm really excited about hosting or being moderator of this panel. One thing I wanted to say before we get started, I am in Toronto, and I just wanted to say that we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. So very important message for me lately is to get to understand what is going on with Indigenous in Canada. So with that said, we have Jason Katz, President, Atmosphere Event Communications, Annie Cantin from Believe Digital, and Catherine Jacques from Contract and Booking Manager for Cirque du Soleil. So with that said, I want everybody to just give a quick, brief intro. You'll say it better than I will. Jason, you're up.
God, thanks. 35 years in the events industry, producing a variety of shows, meetings, conferences, product launches over those years. A company called Atmosphere Event Communications. We've been producing the shows worldwide. And as of late, I've been hanging out at home with my family and, taking a look at what's going on with the world, taking a little step back, strategizing a little bit, and just getting ready to make some moves right now. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Annie?
Well, hi, nice to meet everybody virtually. 34 years in the music industry, distribution specifically. I did everything from the record store to the distribution major labels to international marketing to now digital distribution. I've been with Believe for now 2 months, but I've been fooling around the digital world for a while. So very pleased to be here, and thank you, Darryl, for moderating.
Thank you. Catherine?
Hello, everybody. So for me, my experience is it has always been as a booking agent. So I first started for a booking agency in Montreal, mostly artists from Quebec, mostly singing in French, and I was booking tours in Quebec, Canada, a little bit in Europe as well, Switzerland, France, and Belgium. After 2 years, I moved on to Contemporary Circus. I started to work for Cirque, contemporary circus company based in Montreal as well. There I was taking care of the international development and booking for the touring shows. And then a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago, I've been approached by Cirque du Soleil in order to work in their planning and touring team as well, where I was playing essentially the same role. So planning and booking the tours for the arena shows more specifically. And 6 months later, COVID hits, and the company is obviously in emergency mode right now, trying to figure out how we will proceed. So yeah, I'm within the 95% who's been temporarily laid off, and there we go.
All right, thank you, everyone. And just a little bit about my background is I started off as a musician. I've also done retail as a buyer for HMV. I've been a booker of many venues in Toronto, managed artists. I started a festival in Toronto called Indie Week. This is would have been or is our 17th year. And as well, I'm in distribution also. I've been with CD Baby for a year. So quite a vast range, as we all do. I feel we all wear hats and many hats to keep the revenue streams coming. And I think we're all putting on new hats right now. So, and now with that said, Events are down for at least 2020, those shows are happening. When do you think we'll be able to attend conventions or live shows, any kind of form of live event again? Any idea when you think we'll be able to get back?
So I could jump in on that, and anybody could feel free to layer on it. So I think if we look at what's going on in other parts of the world, there's already things that have started. So if we look at Germany, for example, was the first one to do an outdoor drive-in theater most recently. In Montreal, we're going to see some stuff happening. Colleague Adam Boltz, who was just on one of the panels earlier, has put something together in Montreal for another type of outdoor theater, event theater, where there's going to be live shows as well happening there. I think that the biggest, one of the challenges with conventions is, really getting to them for starters. So having the aviation sector opening up things and government allowing people to cross borders is going to play a critical factor of that. I think that, we'll probably see smaller events first. So smaller groups, let's say, 20 people would be probably the next phase, in a room together, socially distanced, and then remotely connecting maybe to other smaller groups in other areas, whether it be in the same building or another area of the world, for example. So, does it, if the question that we want to answer is how large are those events going to be? I think time's going to tell. And Darryl, you just mentioned just earlier, just before we got on, that Toronto just put a ban on live shows, right?
Yeah, basically all live music performances. Like, we're trying to start the first phase of opening, and today they just pushed that back to June 19th because our number of cases is starting to spike again. Yeah. So I have a feeling that's even going to get pushed back again. But yeah, they said no live music at all in the first phase.
But then you look at brands like Disney, for example, that just opened up in Florida. I believe it was yesterday. So they're open. Obviously, they have, obviously thin audiences at the moment, but they're open, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have some live shows in the park. And then the Consumer Electronics Show that happens in Las Vegas announced that they're going forward with 2021. But who knows if there's a second wave that happens? Is it going to affect any of those decisions? I think, time will really tell on how that plays out. And a lot of it has to do with us as as the community that takes care of things when, the restrictions are lifted and we're wearing the masks and we're socially distancing. But, some of the things that we saw most recently when Toronto allowed parks open, and I see it in Montreal also. I mean, there's people just hanging out like nothing is going on. And, so, is everything okay? Are we taking the precautions? I don't know. We do our best, but I think that, we have to manage expectations, and take care of each other for it to open up fully.
I agree. Annie, Catherine, anything to add?
I feel I may be a tad pessimistic, but I'll throw myself out there. For the moment, I do agree with Jason that time will tell. We don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. We don't know what's going to happen in September when the flu season comes around, if the cases are spiking up again, and if we see a second wave. I don't know. I've always felt like 2021 may be hit as well. And I honestly feel that maybe live events as we know them, because we have to also figure out if the public is going to be willing to just get out there and stack itself one over another or very close to people. Maybe people are going to be scared. We don't know how people feel about being together in a small room or a festival for that matter.
But Annie, just to step in there, but
sure.
we were talking earlier. I don't know if everybody was on when we were talking. We were saying how you look at large venues like the Bell Center, for example, in Montreal, or any other venues, and and having larger capacity venues with less people in them, with local acts, larger acts. So let's use Arcade Fire as an example in Montreal. Let's say I believe that they could draw quite a few people to the Bell Center. and then they could webcast those shows.
Absolutely.
They have an opportunity to broadcast. There's revenue that could come in from there. I saw Darryl talking on another panel earlier where, cross-pollinating merchandise in different areas, for example.
Absolutely.
Finding ways to interact with people at home and saying, have your own backyard concert party together because you're allowed 10 people together, and show it with on a big screen in your backyard and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think my point was pretty much related to the actual live event itself with people as we knew it up until now. I totally agree with you. And if people want to check it out there, Laura Marling has done a great job of this internationally. Great job.
No, you guys are right. One thing that is obvious and clear to me is that it's going to have to come back slowly and adapted in some sort of way, for sure. We were talking about that as well a bit before, but it's obvious to me as well that it's going to be able to come back, I guess, locally way before it's going to be able to pick up internationally. International touring, huge event, large tours, of course, will not be happening tomorrow morning. But I think that actually, well, as for example, Quebec artists touring in Quebec specifically, or as you said, larger venue, several nights in a row, so people move instead of the band moving is another way to see it. Resident shows will probably be up there before anything else, but it's an occasion, I think, for local artists and audience to support each other.
Catherine, what as an idea, just to layer on, I don't know if anybody's listening with Cirque, but would Cirque, do you think ever, I'm just, gonna throw this out there, would Cirque leave the tent set up in the port, for example, and create a residency shows where local bands could come in and use that facility at a limited capacity, let's say, and create that experience in there? You know what I mean? Like use their facility, their venue for something other than Cirque.
Exactly. Well, it could be a possibility for sure. I don't know if it's been discussed, but it's a great idea. I think to support each other will be the key. So yes, if we can collaborate and make it viable for other performers to make a live event in such an installation, why not? Makes it accessible to people, and it could be if it's beautifully done, it could be a win-win scenario for everyone, of course.
Well, you guys know how to do beautiful.
Well, yeah, that we can. Well, I'm not taking any credit though.
I also
part of it.
I also sort of see there's an opportunity. Like I'm looking at all the funding and grants available, and a lot of it, the arts has been sort of overlooked in a certain case. But one I was looking at is for like healthcare, like equipment, like face masks and things like that. But one angle I was thinking that where we could be also part of community is we could potentially have live COVID testing for all attendees.
That's I had a chill, a good idea.
And so that there's a different level of importance to having an event is that we're testing people, like there's ways to think about that too. So, and that sort of came out of like, I see that like there's a grant that I believe the deadline is like Friday. And I'm like, could I put one together fast enough? Because it's really just meant to supply businesses looking to reopen with safety equipment. So there are again, I'm always trying to think out of the box. Like I know, Jason, you don't like the term new normal, but, but we have to think new. And we have to think to what is going to be normal for us moving forward. All right. So, with that said, kind of leads into the next question. When we do get back to hosting events, whether small or large corporate, what are some of the changes that you think are going to be put in place immediately, but will last because things will change? Like this is a changing moment. So, how are we going to do business in the future?
Well, that's go ahead.
Well,
you go, Catherine.
No one wants to take this one.
No, not at all.
Well, jump in. Yeah, go.
It's going to be very challenging for sure. The venues are already struggling. Some of them might even think that it's going to be cheaper to remain closed. So again, artists and venues will need each other more than ever. That's obvious. I have faith in outdoor events, maybe first, to start, slowly to reassure the audience, to reassure the people that it's visible and it's not endangering. But then we've been talking about, of course, reducing capacity or using larger venues, and eventually maybe propose tickets for the live performance, but also another price range to attend the concert or the event virtually. But then now if we do that, we have to think that most of the attendance might be virtual, which is no revenue for the venue. So then we'll have to think about a model where the venue might have to be compensated a certain percentage maybe of the online attendance tickets or something like that. But there's definitely a business model that needs to be thought and developed in regards to that.
But with that, I mean, there's going to be a lot of restrictions to getting inside those venues, and not just thinking live music, but you think any type of event, sales meeting, what have you. First of all, it's for sure going to be local. It's going to be local, regional events. We're not going to be traveling for it. It's going to be events, I believe, that are going to be shorter in time spent in the venue. I'm hearing numbers like 2 hours in the same location together, for example. Is something, but maybe that'll change. Who knows, as they learn more about it. I said earlier, like smaller groups connected remotely together. So if you use a venue like the Queen Elizabeth, for example, and all these venues are going to have to figure out ways to get revenue coming in. So, you look at the Queen Elizabeth that has a tremendous, probably the most convention space for a hotel property in Montreal. They're going to have to use all that space, but have less people in the space. So even when you think about, what they're going to need to do to prepare for everybody, so hand sanitizing stations everywhere, you're going to have a touchless pay systems, for example, for events. Like companies like Cantin, I think, are going to explode right now because of that. Also a Quebec-based company. Body temperature measurement happening on as you walk into the venue. Grab and go bento boxes and not having any buffets, for example. All these things that you have to think about, that people, you make it, it's got to be a safe environment, and all participants and staff wearing masks. So what does that look like? How does that feel? When you think about going to a business event, it's about networking, right? You can't see somebody's mouth. It's like, you kind of like miss part of it. So, what does the mask look like, for example, that we're going to start wearing? Maybe that's an opportunity to, we're seeing these clear masks come out. So you still have a mask, but you can still see the mouth moving. I think we have to think like that when we're getting together for networking based opportunities. So there's so many different angles to feature in the, in the new normal, Darryl. I guess it's unlimited to the amount of things that we're gonna, that are gonna take place. I mean, Vegas just opened up.
Yeah.
So look at what they're doing. Like they got people going to those tables. I mean, how many people want to touch casino chips all day? Like what are they doing for that? And money being passed.
I'm still waiting for the face mask that has hashtags and my account on it and things like that.
They're coming.
That's a great
or hashtags and you scan a barcode, so you get the QR the QR code, so you know who it is, and it's and still maybe finding ways to interact and bring people online, for example. I don't know, there's so many interesting things that are going to happen, but definitely it means less people in the audience for sure.
And much more sanitary procedures. Yeah, of course, you were mentioning the mask, but it goes really far in a service in a venue. So I was thinking of no more service. You cannot have a bar or anything.
That's exactly where my head was at. I'm like, how do you manage alcohol and music in a venue in a COVID-19
something to think about
scenario? It's just
sippy cups. It's your own sippy cup, and you go to a retail, you fill it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, because actually a friend of mine was saying something along these lines the other day, and I really thought that was interesting. He goes, all right, so let's say you're in a park or in a venue going to see a show, you have your masks on, you're trying to have sipping a beer with a straw, I don't know. And then it starts okay because you're not inhibited. and then the alcohol kicks in, and then
Yeah.
2 meters become 1 meter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of hours, you're like, well, YOLO, you know,
Mhm.
YOLO, give me a hug. So how do you deal with that? Like the whole human aspect of being together and connecting at a show is very hard.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's two things that sort of come to mind out of some of the things I'm hearing. One, some of my business associates in Asia and India, for instance, have an app and they need to scan it. Like my associate in Singapore, every store he goes to, he has to like get his app scanned or QR code, and he either gets a green, you get to go in, or a red, no. Like there's, you know, obviously they're trying to
That's
track.
like when you go to Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
You go to Mexico and you ever get the red one? It's not good.
No, you get to go to the little room and But yeah, so it's a way that they're actually able to capture like who currently has the case of COVID and prevent them from spreading it. So that might be something. And then I was actually going to try something last year at Indie Week, and just timing didn't work out. But pre-sold drink tickets, for instance, like when you buy your ticket, you purchase your alcohol ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you arrive, it's kind of like if you're designated to a seat, it could already potentially be there.
Yeah. Phones, Wi-Fi, some bars and restaurants in Montreal started to go out about the measure that they're thinking of. And one of the things is obviously no more menus. So either on a board or some places says you log into my Wi-Fi, and then you have my menu option right there, and you can order straight from your phone, so nobody touches anything.
You pay right there also before you leave.
Exactly. Replace door handle by feet bracket. To some weird stuff that but exactly, so it's gonna feel weird, of course, at first, but in a couple of years might be the new way to go. We'll see.
And this is just a sort of a side thought too, that came out of some conversations I had this week. Canada Day is coming up July 1st, right? And it's like that's a huge major Canadian event that the government gets behind. Yeah. And if anyone's going to try to push opening anything, it'll be the government for their own event.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually on a call this morning with the ambassador of Canada in Abu Dhabi, and Canada is working on something right now with a bunch of different artists. So there's going to be obviously a virtual event that's happening there for sure.
Yeah. I've heard some of the talks in Toronto that's happening. So it's kind of interesting. And then I've also, through that same contact, there's an artist that is working on kind of a tour, but geofencing, in the sense that they'll say, oh, this is for the venue in Calgary, but you can only log on if you're in Calgary. And they're able to kind of do a virtual tour that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Laura Marling did, actually. The geolocationing, the geofencing thing for her shows. So she did a virtual show, multi-cameras in her actual venue. Tickets were limited, so you get like the sense of urgency to get the ticket to go see the show, but it was like geo-targeted. So people in the States couldn't see the show in the UK. So she had a special date for the US. Mm-hmm. So I think she maximized a lot from that experience. Yeah.
Did you guys see the David Guetta show in Miami or New York that happened over the last couple of weeks? So David Guetta, these guys called the Charity Guys out of Miami, did a show in Brickell, Miami, and brought David Guetta in for it. And he was playing on a terrace on one of the buildings, and all the other buildings are surrounding it with a massive light show, video, and everything from the terrace. And and everybody's partying on the terraces of their condominiums. And they raised something like $700,000 in that night for a fundraiser. And then they did another show at Rockefeller Plaza in New York with David, I think it was a week later, where they raised another $400,000 there. Really cool show. So there's a lot of really interesting things that are coming out of this that are live event still. And there's nothing stopping a band from doing that, except for, we're hearing things about bands in close proximity and singing where obviously, I mean, I would hope that they don't have anything related to COVID when they go and play, which they would be tested before that. But, you know, you could find interesting ways to do that. I mean, you know, think about something in old Montreal, for example, or something in downtown. Well, Toronto, you guys are out right now. But, you know, but Montreal is, you know, is willing to, you know, I mean, I don't think we should in some cases because of some of the numbers that we're hearing here, but you know, Montreal is willing to go in you know, make some space for the live shows.
Right. And what do you think about moving towards virtual, where like there's been Fortnite events, there's been Twitch, cool. Like I've seen some really like crazy over the top DJ sets on Twitch. Like the production value alone on it was pretty insane. And that's something that I think, for instance, Cirque could potentially be able to pull off in that kind of environment. What are you guys' thoughts about like literally moving all virtual in an environment like that?
I have actually a really interesting stat that I read last week, just to put this out there. Okay, so a study last week revealed that 93% of event marketers plan to invest in virtual events moving forward, and that those virtual events will be valued at $86 billion by 2021.
Wow.
So one important point is the value. We have to know what is the value of such content and online live events, for sure. Would it be convention? Would it be arts, a show or whatsoever? And I think that the risk here is that we did not have any time to figure this out or to plan it in advance. And when everything started, it started really abruptly. And in a bit of a panic mode, everything became quickly available online. So artists or company are just, you know, pouring content online. And there's a big difference when someone like Cirque du Soleil do it or an emerging artist, you know. Yes, now you can go and watch the whole show that you can see in Vegas online. But I mean, this show, the money's been made, you know, it's not. And people will keep going seeing that show anyway, even if it's available online. So, but careful is the word here, because I think that, you know, that the sentence that the problem when you work for exposure is that you can actually die from exposure. So, and I was reading a very interesting article as well yesterday, I think, from the Melbourne University. And they were making a parallel saying that arts industry must not do the same mistake newspaper did, which is at first putting everything out there for free, abundantly, in some sort of panic mode with no strategy, and later on trying to put a value on it and monetize it. This is so alienating for the consumer and the audience. When you create the precedent or the habit that you can get it for free, how do you back up after? So really, we need to slow down and figure a way to monetize the strategy. And
well,
because
to that point, actually, there have been a few conferences over the last little while. Last month, there was one done by a group out of New York. The conference was called Create and Cultivate, and it was a women's health and wellness event. And they had, from what I heard, was 6,000 attendees and $95 US per attendee plus sponsors. So you're talking anywhere from $600 to $1 million, let's say, in revenue there. And you know, and with that, I mean, they brought in Chelsea Handler to speak on one of the panels. So you know, so I think that the thing that we're learning is, you know, and even this event, the Rise event, and maybe it's not a known event, but I think this should be a paid event, quite honestly. And, you know, there's a value to it that's out there. And it didn't have to be, you know, you just have to ask for it. And I think we have to start charging for this, and we're going to learn, and the world's going to learn with us. And there's going to be better ones, and there's going to be not so great ones, and the consumer will determine which ones they want to go and attend because of how well it's marketed and who the panelists are or who the entertainment is. And you know, and watch out, because you know, if you look at years ago, the music industry got Napsterized by you know, Sean. And
exactly,
you know,
it's not the first hurricane.
Exactly. You know, but this is a hurricane everywhere right now.
Yeah.
So with that said, all those little players that are out there that have been around for a while, those guys that are in their basements that are playing with technology just surfaced, and you know, they're out there. So it's for, you know, the bigger companies that are looking at it and saying, okay, well, we either have to do something, or we need to acquire that company or partner with that company, or find an interesting way to get into the market. But we can't, we're not going to see a Cirque du Soleil die tomorrow. It's not going to happen. You know what I mean? So a Cirque du Soleil is going to come back stronger than ever with a brilliant mind. And I hope Guy gets that business, by the way. I really do. I think it would be amazing to see him come back and do incredible things. And if he's listening right now, and I hope he is, I really wish him and the team at Cirque du Soleil, like, to emerge from this is going to be triumphant, and if anybody can do it, they can. And there's other players in our industry also across the board. Anya and Darryl, I'm sure you know a whole bunch in the industry that you can look at and go, man, they are going to just come out bigger and better than ever, because of this. And it gives them an opportunity to strategize and change and use the technology that's available and just, revolutionize the industries.
Yeah. And if I can add, like, I'm actually running a survey right now with our audience for Indie Week, and 50% have already said that they're willing to pay for something that's a form of free and paid, and 26% are saying reduced ticket price. Yeah. So the majority of people are willing to pay something. And I think you're right. It's the offering the value, but marketing it properly so that they know what they're getting. And then I think on the back end that a lot of people are not talking about is data. Sponsors and brands are going to want to have access to this data. And like there's an artist that I help out and stuff. He does a stream every Wednesday on Facebook, because he normally is playing in a pub that holds 60 people. On average, when he's done his hour, 1,700 people have tuned in. And then within the week, it gets up to 2,600, 3,000. And some people are literally just messaging him. And like, he's had one guy go, here's $500, all right? And people are like, he doesn't even ask for money. He doesn't have a tip jar. He doesn't have a link. And people are literally, here's some money. They just email it to him. So, and I'm the one, like, he's an artist. I'm like, are you capturing this data somehow? Like 1,700 people every week. When you get back to live, you want to be able to connect with them and also be able to show a sponsor. This is my reach. This is my value. Yeah.
Well, we to that point, when you were talking about that, your friend, and then I think we were talking about also like side door, the side door access out of Canada, and Stephen Page, who is doing, I think he's done already 4 shows, and you're charging $8 a person, and he had 1,000 people show up. I mean, to sit at home on your couch and make $8,000 for an hour, man, I wish I knew how to play an instrument. I gotta tell you that, like, like, incredible, right? For them, that's not a bad night, and you don't even have to. I mean, obviously not the same as doing a live show, of course, but I guess the emerging technologies that have allowed artists and industry to be able to head out there and do what we're doing right now is staying, and it's here forever. And there's going to be early adopters, but everybody has to adopt it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the music industry, we've always changed. We've always adapted. And that's what's exciting, I did want to say, looking at the time, if anybody has any questions, put it into the Q&A. But Annie, I just wanted to throw a question off your way, like, talking about distribution online. How are you seeing the effects of COVID with distribution?
We're seeing a lot of music out there. There is a lot of music out there. There is a lot of people that have fooled around with their schedules. We haven't seen any any super duper great marketing plan or way to release a record in a COVID period. But what we do know is that we do, as a company, we do strongly believe that this period is going to be the period of the indie artist. I think the indies are gonna pop up and flare up and in a very positive way. I think, to Catherine and Jason's point in the past when we spoke, indie local artists are gonna be driving this musical industry. we do believe it's time to release. We don't discourage people to release. We do encourage people to release. We think it's a very important step for the music industry right now. And I mean, there is so much, I can't stress it enough. There's so much out there. There's so much ways to get your music out there, to be socially engaged, to get your fans to chat with you. There is like between Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, you are in. If you can just like manage these, especially for YouTube, there's a bunch of new stuff that came out. You can super chat with the person you're interacting with. It gives you money. There's tip jar. There's Stage It. A lot of opportunities out there, but you have to. It's a full-time job. You really, as an artist, as an indie, you have to commit to reach out to your fans and to engage with them and get them to engage with you back in question. But you have to be there. It's a very important point for us, engaging with your people, with your fans.
I agree 100%. I almost call it like every artist is running their own radio show or radio channel.
Exactly.
Where they have to have the traffic report at this time. They have to have the weather report at this time. Like, this is when you talk. This is when you engage. This is when you do the live, and be consistent. Like, consistent is the key. And I think we all know with artists, sometimes consistent is not in the dictionary for them. You know. So that's where I think, you know, there's still building a team around artists right now and marketing, and this is a time to possibly plan, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's some questions, Darryl.
Haven't seen, is there questions? I don't see any questions.
Yeah, I see a few.
But just to, in the meantime, jump on what you said, Annie, actually.
The window open.
Sure.
There they are. But it's not my field at all. It's just a feeling. Maybe I'm wrong, but do you think that the audience is more receptive than ever right now, as the world is at a much more slower pace? It's not everybody's case, but you know, a lot of jobs are down. Lots of people are home. There is less entertainment out there. You cannot go to the restaurant or whatever. So I think that this audience that the artists need, maybe it's a good time to release, as you said, as they are right there in front of their screen, you know, receptive. And
we felt some sort of a small decrease when COVID hit, streaming wise, for very specific reasons, and I think logical reasons as well. Due to people not transiting to go to work anymore in their cars or in buses or whatnot. You used to plug yourself on your favorite streaming platform and you could stream your life away until you get to work, and that had an effect at the beginning because people didn't, you know, transit as much. Streaming has kind of been back for now. And we do see interest from fans for new music, but we also see a lot of interest for back catalog. So artists that have an actual back catalog, people are revisiting the past a lot. So it's also the time to work with what you have, or if you don't have anything planned in advance, or if your release was planned for 2021, but you have back catalog for you to fool around, you can put that up front again and try to maximize what you have and get your public engaged again. Consistency. Put your efforts on what is out there already. And we have seen, personally, I'm taking this time to really listen to new stuff, like always. But sometimes I'm like, oh, I feel like listening to some old Rush from, you know, like in the back, and it's there for me to listen to. So that's a very interesting thing.
I would think you hop into Guns N' Roses occasionally. No?
Oh yeah, I have the picture close by. I would go get it, but then.
All right, I'm just going to jump to a question, Joey.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Darryl, try to get to a few questions in the Q&A. That way we can get those answered.
Yeah, so Joey's got a few in here. I know Joey too. What are new marketing strategies for says now even more saturated online reality? What new approaches should indie artists consider?
Wow, it's a constant battle out there. Ideas are coming in from left, right, and center. I think planning is key. I think people tend. I loved Catherine's point 2 points ago about how to go out there, but then be careful because you can't take it back. Yeah. I think planning, strategizing, a good marketing plan, know what you see it before you do it. I think for me, that's always been very, very helpful for any artist that wants to do some live events out there. But there's so many ideas, right. So many ideas.
Any tips on how to break through though? Like with everybody's online, so many live shows, how do you break through so that you're noticed?
I mean, I guess that's the same thing. Like, how would you break through in a non-COVID era, right? I mean, why do some artists make it and some don't? I mean, you know, like, you look at it, I'm not the biggest fan, but you look at a Justin Bieber, for example, and look what happened to him, you know, and many of those artists, you know, so, you know, and I'll say it again, and it's very much underground still, but I'm a big fan of the band, but I think of the band Fish. You know, how did they grow such a cult following, or the Grateful Dead for that matter, you know, to get to the point where they could take, 6 months or 6 years off and come back and everybody's lined up to see their show still. Anywhere in the world, by the way. They could go to anywhere and say, we're going to play on the moon, and people will get a ticket to go to the moon to see them. My point is like, what have these artists done that sets them apart from others that are out there? And so is it really a question related to what's going on right now, or just in general?
Or branding, just branding. Yeah. You know, like to bring everything to one centralized point. A friend of mine is doing a show for now, a live event in a venue. It's going to be a virtual live event, payable tickets. Everything is drawn back to his website where the merch is, where the single is, all the availability online is, Facebook, everything is converging to one spot. It's basically
like an omni approach.
Basic branding.
And it's funny, like you brought up Justin Bieber on his Instagram. I've been watching, he'll go on and there's thousands of people immediately watching his live feed, and he randomly picks people to talk to. And like his fans go crazy love chat with him, you know, and he's like actually interested in hearing, like, he's like, how's your day? What did you do? Tell me, you know?
I think also, you know, it's interesting when you do that, like that. I love that. But, you know, a lot of artists I find are you know, they don't put themselves out there so much. That's what the stage is for. You know, I've had an opportunity to meet, as I'm sure you guys have as well. You meet some artists, you know, you see them on stage, it's like Superman. You see them off stage, it's Clark Kent. You know what I mean? So when they get in an environment to have a conversation with fans, for example, it could be a really weird conversation depending on who they are and how they moderate the conversation, because they have people around them that facilitate the discussion somewhat, right? Yeah. So this is kind of like letting your pants down in front of fans, you know. And I think, like, when you think about, you know, any artist, and there's so many, but, you know, being able to get that close to an artist but still have a screen between you to do it is still safe compared to, you know, letting everybody backstage. And it goes back to what we said earlier with, you know, the different costs or the different prices to access different levels of the entertainment. So if you go to a live show, which will have less people, it's going to be a premium price. And then if you want the backstage access, it'll be a VIP backstage access with another premium. And then there's the virtual, you know. So you think, but just standing out, man, I agree. I mean, it's definitely on marketing, but you got to be good.
And I mean, you may have the biggest, boldest, strongest marketing plan ever, and never be heard, or this one song can be featured in an advertising of some sort, and now the whole world knows about you. How many bands did I discovered because of a Heineken or TELUS advertising I saw? I think it also, marketing and planning ahead is very important. Of course, you need a strategy and you need to be consistent. I agree, it's the key. But it might be an interesting time as well to think and diversify a bit your activity as an artist, if I put myself in their shoes, because there's much more you can do than releasing albums and doing shows, you know. You can think about writing music for TV, for commercials, for a movie. You can try a bunch of things out there. You can, so I know it's not easy.
Well, I think that's where the DJ Moby got his biggest break, I think, doing music for movies, right?
Alexandra Strelinski, the pianist, that's now full mainstream. It's classical music, but it's really mainstream now in Montreal, or shows everywhere around the country sold out like that. And it was because of movie music. Jean-Marc Vallée movie was featuring her.
Well, Celine Dion's career took off after
Titanic.
You know, and like, you know, online, just start talking about artists connecting. Like Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins has had, like, he broke down, like, for instance, Gish, like top to bottom, and stuff like here's the story behind. Like, these are the documentaries we're always watching, but here's the artists talking about their story live. And that was so engaging to watch when Billy Corgan did that. Like, that was last week I watched him. And he's just on his Instagram, and he's like, I'm going to break down Gish completely, top to bottom, what gear we used, why the producer picked this, why did we mix a song this way. It was really amazing. So
getting personal.
You guys see this question?
Documentaries.
Yeah.
There's an interesting question here. It's Joey again. Joey has a lot of questions, you know, but he says who are creative marketers in the music industry that bands should look to working with? Do you guys know anybody that you could, you know, drop a name? Who would be one of those people to, you know, sought after marketer in the industry?
It depends on the market. Like Darryl could have like a certain person. We could have somebody else here in Quebec. Different way of marketing.
So do you play it by genre of music, and then you figure
it depends. You have PR and marketing firms that are going to really specialize in world and jazz, and there are really a few of those. And then you're going to get the ones that do the pop and the French. But then the PR for world and jazz for Quebec is not going to be the same for Ontario. So sometimes bands are going to take one from Quebec for this province, and then take another one for English Canada, because the way of marketing is different.
Right.
It remains the same, but it's just like the language, first of all, is different, and the way to market is different.
Mm-hmm. And I think go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
No, I was just about to say that sometimes it's also, you know, most of the time, a question of, you know, finding the right match for you. The person or the team you're going to work with needs to be very much into what you do. They need to believe into your project, and be careful sometimes not to go with the big ones or the big name if you're going to become just a number, you know, or one of the bottom line artists of his big roster. So make sure you go with someone that you connect with, and that they really, really are into what you do and passionate about your project. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I would almost say, and this is going kind of out there, but look at what like sports guys are doing. Like, how do they, like, they're the ones that understand branding and partnerships, relationships. Like, I just watched the Michael Jordan documentary, and they talk about how, you know, he got on with Nike. He didn't want to be on Nike. Like, he wanted to be on with Adidas or Converse, and like Nike wasn't even on the radar, but they were able to convince him, and what a partnership that obviously turned out to be. You know, like, I think they said that they were hoping to sell $3 million worth of shoes in the first year, but they sold 126 million, right?
That's bad.
Yeah. You know, so I think that it is like almost like talking to people in the sports industry might be a good way to go, because they understand, as you said, like thinking outside the box, but also a partnership that might not be as evident, because that makes it more interesting. So I don't know, anyone to add on that?
I would agree with that. I mean,
I agree too.
Different industries, you know, crossover in industry, no matter what. It could be a real estate magnate, somebody that knows real estate well, that's been really good at it, you know, and have conversations with them, or look at the, you know, fintech industry, and, you know, it's there's great creative thinkers all over, and just getting, you know, in a room, and it's a lot more accessible now to get these people in a room with you. They're making themselves available. you know, and not being stuck in that same vacuum that you're in, whether you're in the music industry or the, you know, the meetings and events industry or what have you, and cross-pollinating, and we're going to learn a lot from each other. So it's a really great point, that.
Yeah, it's the Michael Jordan documentary was really eye-opening about some of how that went down. And you know, just here's somebody who didn't believe in the product, but when brought on board later at the Olympics, when a different brand was sponsoring, he was so brand loyal, he covered it up with the American flag. And that was right. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of opportunities. As you said, people are approachable right now. There's an artist that I just sort of helped out, Mikey Hodden. He started doing ukulele songs, one a day during this, but now partnering with people. He's had the guitarist from Offspring play a different punk song. He's a big fan of Back to the Future. So in the movie, there's a song that's sung. He contacted the actor to do that song. And
wow.
Like, it's so everybody's stuck at home. It's look them up and reach out, and you never know what can happen, you know?
True.
Actually, I had a friend, I was on at a Zoom party for a 49th birthday, and my friend had Florida come and play in the Zoom and sing him happy birthday and do a whole thing, you know, in my house song with him.
Yeah.
Well, your friend has good friends.
Yeah. or a
right,
budget,
guys.
one or the other. I don't know what it was.
Sorry, we reached the end of our panel. Thank you so much for the great discussion, the great input that you provided. Thank you, Darryl, Jason, Andy, and Catherine. That was really, really insightful and really useful for any artist and music industry professional and entertainment industry professional as well who's been watching the conference. I'd like to also take a minute to thank our team, Alex, Pamela, and Rob. We're here in the office and, you know, making sure everything runs smoothly and adapting to this new way of doing virtual events. So thanks to everyone who's been watching, and we do accept donations on the website. Any amount, it just helps us to create a real physical event, hopefully next year. And if you want, you can also follow the upcoming Rise events by following the Facebook page at Rise Montreal, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So thank you to everyone who joined.
Can I just say something, Alicia? Like,
yeah.
I've watched you build this thing with your team over the last, you know, whatever month or so. Like, you guys have done an outstanding job pulling this together in a short amount of time.
Thank you.
And I've had an opportunity to work with you on a few occasions, and you guys really shine. You did a great job. I know you've been thanking everybody, but you know, like you did really amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jason.
Congrats,
thanks, everyone.
and thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.